Sir, I have a question. It might be a bit stupid though.
Remember, there are no stupid questions, just stupid people.
A bit harsh. The questions that I'm covering in this series might be bad. That doesn't make them stupid, though some might come under the title of incredible or ill-informed. But they can be ill-advised, lacking in clarity or misguided. But when you're focused on the wrong thing, it's like self-misdirection, causing you to head off the route you originally hoped to travel. Today we're covering 3 new topics, and I remind you these are all genuine questions. Yes, even the third one. Wow. So, let's get to it. What I'm sure you don't want to hear here is, it depends. So rather than go that route, let's review the question to find the answer. Why do you want to know? From my experience, this question comes from 2 places, often concurrently. You've decided to make a change and you just want to see it happen. A bit like a child on the lead up to Christmas or their birthday, counting down the days, the hours, the minutes, even the seconds. Though if you remember those times or have seen it in action, the reality rarely lives up to the hype. It's not that it's disappointing, just when you compare the level of excitement in the lead up to the level of satisfaction and joy in the days after, there's clearly a mismatch. The other reason for asking this question comes from a much worse place, one of dread or anguish. You want to make a change, you feel it's important, but the idea of the process, the exercising, the dieting, the abstinence from indulgence like alcohol or sweets, is already filling you with trepidation. So you're almost asking, when will this be over? Or how long do I have to do this? It's one thing to know what you want. If you're not clear on that, you're making less focused choices and more likely to head off track. Having targets in the form of timescales can also be useful to ensure you don't procrastinate and fall into the do it tomorrow loop. But by phrasing the question this way, the focus is on time, not the result itself, what it means or how you feel about it. You're less likely to enjoy the journey, and it can only lead to disappointment. Let me explain. Let's say you asked this question and received a fixed answer of 12 weeks, which is pretty common when you look at the marketing of many programs and services. What has this achieved? If you do see changes in the 12 weeks, that's what you expected. So it's nothing to be overly happy about, even though you'll say otherwise at the start. And if you don't see the results you envisaged in that time, you're going to feel let down. There is no circumstance where you'll feel your expectations have been exceeded, because what you're aiming for is what you're imagining. So even if you do get ahead of schedule, you're likely to move the goalposts and imagine something even better. So in what circumstances could asking this question achieve a positive outcome? I've heard the argument that it's motivational. It's a number that feels doable and it will keep you going because there is an end in sight. But that goes back to the idea of pushing through something you're not inspired to do, something that's making you feel miserable. So what will ultimately happen? If you haven't enjoyed the process, you're likely to go back to the things you did enjoy. And with that feeling of deprivation, you might well double down on them, ending up in a worse position than where you started. I'll tell you what won't leave you in a worse position though, hitting that like button. In fact, it'll make you feel epic. Try it and see. So how do we reframe this question? If you're looking for a time base to focus on, there are several ways you could approach this and have it benefit you. It may be that you look at a periodized plan. You're going to focus on one element for a period and look to make improvements there. For example, you may want to increase your strength because you understand that if you're stronger, you're less prone to injury and capable of more in your training or sporting activities and your day-to-day life. Perhaps you give yourself a 6-week period to see an increase here before moving on to something else. Now you have that time frame you sought, and you can measure that progress as your body becomes more capable of dealing with the challenges that you're throwing at it. You can feel good about that, and it can inspire you to the next stage of the plan. Strength may not have been your end goal, but it's part of the process, and now you can feel confident you're moving towards your target, and your enthusiasm is likely to heighten. It doesn't have to be strength. It could be building a daily habit, increasing your flexibility and mobility, resolving a postural imbalance, or just drinking more water for a prescribed period of time. These are all things you can put a time frame on, measure and use to move you forward, but without the weight of expectation or the possibility of disappointment? Now, I have said I will strive to answer these questions regardless of their quality to help you achieve closure on the subject, and 12 weeks is a good benchmark to have if you must set a time frame. Often visible results will begin to show faster than this, but then that does depend on what the goals are and what your starting point is. I've had clients come to me with discomfort and pain that, with a few changes to habits, some minor exercises, a shift in viewpoint, have seen life-altering shifts in the space of a week or two. I've had others who have seen measurable changes occur that are visible to others within 3 or 4 weeks, but it takes 2 to 3 months to see it themselves. The difficulty here is that we're often our own harshest critics. If there's something you don't like about yourself, often all your focus goes there. And because you're always in your own company and physical regeneration and adaptation is a slow process, it's harder to see those changes happening. But I have found, as have several studies, that a consistent tactical approach to physiological change will become noticeable to most people within 12 weeks of beginning a process. I must stress though, this often gives license to part with reality or rationality. As an example, you might hire a personal trainer, say you want to lose weight and develop your arms and shoulders, then ask, how long will that take to get results? But if the PT answers about 12 weeks, this could act as a subconscious shift in responsibility. You've paid the PT, they said 12 weeks. So, 12 weeks later, you expect to see the thing you paid for. Okay, you missed about 40% of your sessions, you had the flu for 3 weeks, and there was that week where you had all those deadlines at work and had to order in pizza every night, not to mention the coffee you were drinking to allow you to keep working on 4 hours sleep. But you paid for the results, so where is it? Or you start at a gym. You commit to going to 3 fitness classes per week and doing some strength and conditioning work another 2 days each week. You have your dietary approach planned out and you run it past a fitness expert to ask, if you followed that plan, how long before you see results? If you again receive the answer of 12 weeks, then you roll your ankle one day stepping off the train, you can barely walk and your doctor tells you to rest it for 3 weeks, you might then start beating yourself up because you had a date in your head and now you're going to miss it. Or you have that date in your head and feel lied to, or that what you're doing doesn't work because you forgot to recalculate based on the missed 3 weeks. And even then, you can't just add 3 weeks to the time. You need to factor in re-establishing a routine, possible rehab work, and undoing any regression that occurred during those 3 weeks of inactivity. The point is, no one can predict the future, and trying to do so is either living in fantasy land or leaving you open to disappointment. The future doesn't exist. The past is gone. All that is of consequence is the here and now, and what you do with that is what's important. If you make a positive change, then celebrate it without putting qualifiers on it. You were able to lift more weight? That's an achievement. But if you start thinking, well, if I can do that every week for the next 12 weeks, I'll be able to lift, now you're turning your achievement into pressure and potential disappointment. Change and achievement is about enhancing your life, so don't be so quick to belittle those life-enhancing moments. Celebrate your achievements, and when you want to improve, ask yourself what you can do, not how long it's going to take. For this, you could substitute any lifting exercise. I chose bench press because that was the exercise that was used the last time I heard this question asked. And as with most of these questions, I have the same query, or criticism if you like, in that there is no context to draw from. I know, in this modern age, we want things quick and to the point.
Yeah, alright, Grandad.
But what that often leads to are surface level answers that don't satisfy the emotion that generated the question in the first place. So if this is a question you've ever asked, even in your own head, before seeking the answer, ask yourself why you want to know. Commonly this comes down to a couple of reasons. Number one, ego. You think you're lifting heavy and you want validation for that. Perhaps you're benching 120 kilos and what you want to hear is that 100 kilos would be awesome. That way you can feel good that you are greater than awesome. A good clue to this would be if you received an answer that didn't feed your ego. Let's say in this scenario you found out that 150 kilos was about average. Would that prompt you to question things further, comparing body weight, limb length or similar? Then you know you're searching for validation, in which case this question is doing nothing to further your progress. Number two, motivation or insecurity. I've grouped these two together as this is often the driver for those new to lifting weights or recently inspired to knuckle down and focus on progress. You're essentially looking for a target that will inspire you to keep going until you reach it. But any answer you receive will be generic. It's not specific to you, and the response is likely to do more damage than good. The reason for that probably doesn't seem obvious. It's just an innocent question, and surely it's good to have something to aspire to. Well, there are numerous answers you could receive. A number higher than you're currently lifting, but easily achieved. This is good for your ego again, but once you get there, does that cause you to think, job done, and stop pushing? Something that seems incredibly out of reach, and over the coming weeks it disheartens you to the point you give up. After all, what's the point? You're never going to get to where you should be. A number you're already at, so now there's no motivation to keep pushing. A number you're already beyond. Again, good for the ego, not so great for the motivation. And regardless of the number, it's still just a number you're chasing. Why did you include this exercise in your program to begin with? That should be the purpose behind any question you might have, not this arbitrary number. Because now, in your pursuit of the number, what happens to things like form or mind-muscle connection? Does your range of motion become chronically low to the point that you're not progressing at all on a physiological level, but the number's going up? Do you end up pushing yourself beyond your limits? Now, injury or an overtaxed system comes into play, even if the number is important. For example, you're targeting a powerlifting competition, and so this is exactly what's getting tracked. Then the question still doesn't make any sense. The question would be better phrased, at my weight, what would be a target that would allow me to compete? Or, what was the range hit during the last competition? The point being, without specificity, the benefit of asking the question is non-existent. Yet the negatives that could be created from the response could be huge. But I did say I'd try to leave you with an answer. Here, my answer would be, first, reframe the question. Yes, I know that's a bit of a cop-out, but hopefully you now understand why. Be clear about why you're asking the question. Be clear about why you introduced this exercise into your routine in the first place. And if you don't know why, then that is a much better question to be exploring. However, for a bench press, an average man in regular circumstances should be able to bench press around 90 to 100% of his body weight. For women, 60 to 70% would be the equivalent measure. Above that would be preferable. Below likely means there is untapped potential. But keep in mind, you are completely unique. Your goals are unique, and this is nothing more than an estimate. Your age plays a factor, your training experience plays a factor, your arm length plays a factor, your conditioning plays a factor, and just pushing through progressive overload, irrespective of these elements, not to mention sleep, diet, stressors, time of day, air quality, and on, could end up leaving you frustrated or doing something detrimental. Always remember there is a reason you began training in the first place, and being able to tell people a number, in my experience, is never that reason. If it's morphed into the focus of your training, it may be worth pausing and re-evaluating your priorities. Maybe you started bench pressing to develop your pecs because you felt you'd look better. Why is that a concern? Because you have a poor self-image perhaps? If that's the case, then that's the thing you should be focusing on. Is what you're doing helping you feel better about yourself? The vanity number might give you a bit of an ego boost in the short term, but you don't walk around with a badge on saying, I can bench press twice my body weight.
Yeah, that's what social media is for.
So, is your body confidence improving? Do you feel stronger? Is your training routine lifting your mood? This might not be your focus. It might be something to do with sporting performance, general anatomical balance and health. It could be part of your general conditioning routine. Or maybe you just get a buzz out of the burn it gives you and you keep going because you appreciate that sensation. The thing that all these reasons have in common is the weight you're lifting in comparison to an arbitrary average is irrelevant. Training is about self-improvement, so focus on yourself, your desired improvements, and ensure you're moving in the right direction through the choices that you make. Why do you brush your teeth every day when you don't have toothache? Why do you continue to breathe when you've got enough air in your body? A better question might be, why do you ask inane questions that add no value in knowing the answer when there are so many questions that, if answered, could genuinely enhance your life? If these questions resonate with you, then hopefully you can now see the bigger picture and look to invest or focus your energy in ways that will have a more positive impact. And if you're now wondering if there may be questions that you are thinking about or have put a lot of focus on previously that could fall into this category, then click here to see if any of these sound familiar. Or stay tuned and consider subscribing to the channel, as I have more bad fitness questions to cover very soon, including the often raised "how do I motivate myself to work out?", along with a few others that you will not believe people asked.